and I've been having a freewheeling conversation about the DevOps and these freakish system administration passions that you have.
Oh, they're quite deviant in some cases. It's definitely a passion. It's very definitely a passion of mine.
So, what are the predicaments and opportunities for today's system administrator? What are you hearing from customers? What are you trying to deal with?
Time,
Time.
um, time is a ridiculously precious commodity. We're coming out of the back of a recession. Things are obviously improving now, but a lot of places were taken to the bone, and people were asking to do more with less. The way we're always told to, in many regards. Um, but technology has moved on loads, and we all talk about the consumerization of IT and how we talked about the time to value of tools and apps as you get closer to the consumer need to be shorter, and so system administrators are being asked to expose more within their IT estate, and provide better tools for people to do interesting things. So really, it just comes down to time for a lot of people. It's not even about resources; just having the time to stay ahead. Not even time to implement. It's just time to actually keep up and know what it is that you're supposed to be doing strategically as well as tactically.
Do you feel that the jobs of yourself and your system admin brothers and sisters are deeply threatened by the cloud, or is cloud just an opportunity to reinvent and do your job better?
I think it's a way to actually reinvent and do your job better. It's there are obviously going to be people who in the on-premise world are sitting and going, "Oh my God, they're going to take they're going to take the CRM system off me and stick it up in Salesforce." But then whenever you realize that, well, actually, it still needs an integration platform to do stuff back in-house. We still need to report on stuff. It just becomes a different way of provisioning and doing things, and then that's just a SaaS model. Whenever you get into PaaS and infrastructure as a service, there's still a lot of stuff that you need to do, an awful lot of stuff.
Yeah, when the HANA Enterprise Cloud was announced, I was in a back channel chat with a bunch of mentors, SAP mentors, senior technical types, and I remember a couple of them saying like, "Oh my God, this is totally gonna take my job away or whatever," because they were, implying that okay, if the cloud provider is going to take over a lot of the sysadmin, then what is left for me?
Mm.
Um, but I thought Ethan Jewett made some really important points, which is that his point was that you should welcome a challenge to these commodity skills because it's a challenge for you to then redefine your skills in a way that's more business relevant, that's more advisory, that is more strategic. So it's not like you're necessarily giving up your role, but it does push you to reinvent. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. You know, I have said on many occasions, within the DevOps world, we have this concept of there is a gap between the application and the infrastructure and the database, and the person who succeeds the best is the one who actually bridges all those gaps. So you can talk code to a developer and actually do the initial debugging on an application. You can speak to a storage specialist about SAN infrastructure or a network person, and having this broad range of skills as a facilitator makes your life a lot more interesting because literally it can be something different every day. And within the cloud world, that doesn't actually change. And whenever you move into new technologies like HANA, well, not new now, but in newer technologies like HANA, I know basis administrators are going to have to debug SQL. They're going to have to performance trace SQL. Similarly, the way app appers are going to have to learn how to write proper SQL. If you stick your applications in the HANA Enterprise Cloud, your administrators and your developers are going to have to become a lot closer together, speak the same language, and find a common place. And it's just going to be really exciting. So it is. It's not about us and them. It's about how do you actually do something really interesting in a new way, and it'll be absolutely fascinating.
Chris, you're frustrating me because I'm trying to scare the crap out of you.
I
I'm trying
don't.
to I'm trying to make you I'm trying to terrify you about the future of your archaic
Dude,
on-premise skill set, and you're getting all excited about all these changes.
dude, in 5 days, in 5 or 6 days, when Junior K comes along, that is when I'm going to be terrified. You see all this stuff?
I
Doesn't
see.
matter. You know,
Yeah.
that if you said to me, you're going to have to, for the rest of your life, you're now responsible for a little living person. That is a scary thing.
That's fair. Fair rebuttal, Chris. That's fair. So, you snuck in a buzzword on us.
Yeah.
Nice try. Nice try, buddy. You started talking about DevOps as if we're all supposed to understand what that means. Um, so
Yep.
I'm going to challenge you to do two things: to define DevOps in a way that someone like me can understand it, and then tell me why it's important.
So DevOps is it's a portmanteau of the word developer and operations, and basically it is a philosophy that is built on the agile principles. Okay, agile traditionally was applied to projects. We want to apply stuff to operations so that the business derive the benefits of not only faster projects but cleaner and better administration and better communication. It's about breaking down the silos that exist within IT. It's not about a race of super admins. It's not about sysadmins becoming developers. It's not about giving developers root. It's about communicating using common languages and common tools. So we talk in our own conversation about testing tools and things like that, and change management tools. By having projects and administrators and developers and business users all using the same tools, it means we create a common language. And by creating a common language, it means we can work more effectively together. One of the things that silos do is stop common languages forming, which then cause problems. If we use the same language, then we can not have as many problems, and we can do more for ourselves, for our businesses, and for our ecosystem.
Yeah, I've seen some cool, trendy blogs about DevOps. Have
Yeah.
you seen customers adopt this successfully, and how does that work?
Oh, it's a difficult one. They have a saying that DevOps is a journey, not a destination.
Hmm.
It's not a deliverable. It's a way of life.
Right.
So we are very, very lucky within SAP with the fact that our concept of change is very, very mature. So it is, DevOps was instigated in some respects as because people had uncontrolled landscapes within web dev, for example. People were doing development on their laptops and then deploying it to production. It broke, and then the standard answer was, "Well, it worked on my laptop." And the sysadmin's answer was, "Do I put your laptop in the server room and run the website on that then?" Whereas we have a really strong and mature concept of change. So yeah, no, there's lots of people doing lots of aspects of DevOps. I would say SAP change management is very, in many customers, very agile and very DevOps-like. Um, the things like Solution Manager is a very DevOps-like tool in what it does. So it does a lot of things, and it's a central repository. So it has the system landscape information, it has the change management information, it has the monitoring. It's just a beast of an application. So it is that a lot of people don't implement properly. So in the wider world, there are lots of companies like Etsy, companies like Amazon, companies like Facebook, companies like Google. They all do DevOps. They all do it. This is not new. It's common sense in many respects, but in enterprise class situations, it's very, very unknown. You have guys like Jez Humble, Gene Kim, Patrick Dubois, all coming from web world into and great guys, very knowledgeable guys, Jez Humble and Gene Kim specifically are doing more enterprise stuff and have been doing enterprise stuff for a long time. Jez Humble wrote the book on continuous delivery, and so there's lots of people doing it. I've had 2 major oil companies come to me and say, "We really like your DevOps stuff. Will you come and talk to us and show us how to do it?" And so there are people here definitely waking up to it within the enterprise market.
I like that phrase, mature approach to change, Chris. That's a good one.
Well, on the one hand, it is mature. I won't say it's particularly well implemented in every customer, though.
In other words, we're experts in delayed gratification. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to be proud of.
I dare you to say that to Hasso. I really do. I can tell you'll get a very funny reply.
The last time I mentioned Solution Manager to Hasso, I got a very funny reply, but unfortunately I can't say that here. No. But let's go back on safer ground.
Yep.
You're talking about, when I hear you talk about DevOps, I hear in my mind I see a lot of productive dialogue between admins and developers, and I see kind of a healthy blurring of the lines where developers aren't going away for 6 months and coming back with something that may or may not be relevant, and a lot of that sounds really good, but I didn't hear much talk about the business. Does the business fit into DevOps, or is it just geeks and propeller heads talking to each other all day long?
No. As I said, it comes down to a framework it comes down to a common language, and yes, a lot of that language will be between the propeller heads and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we are servicing users and user requests, and the interaction in the business is absolutely critical. Because DevOps is built on the foundations of Agile, the idea and the concept of strong feedback loops, of critique at every option or every opportunity by the business is central to what DevOps actually is. So, what you do is you organize your work into sprints. So you do on the basis of a strategy or tactical need, and you always have a customer for the output of those tasks, and you have to engage on what a definition of done is. You have to engage on what the progress of that is, and then you have to stand up and present it to your customer at the end of it. So that feedback loop into the business is absolutely critical to it. So it is, because it moves so fast. Potentially, if you've got a really strong continuous integration and continuous delivery pipeline into production, you could deviate very, very quickly from what the strategic aims of the business are, unless you speak to them on a regular basis. So how you keep the alignment is constant communication.
It sounds like that also implies new approaches to testing, because you're going to, instead of having these large testing cycles that are largely controlled by IT, you may need to pull business in for quick bursts of testing, right? When new production scenarios go live quickly. Is that part of what's going to happen, or?
I would even challenge the statement of bringing the business in for quick rounds of testing. Ideally, what you should have is an automated regression test pack that would follow something like the 80-20 rule. I've done a lot of thinking about it. Where
I can see that.
Is testing linear or is it exponential based on the length of time of your release cycle? So if you have let's say you've got a quarterly release cycle and you have to expend testing on 4,000 objects as opposed to 40 business processes, if you shorten that to a monthly cycle, how much extra are you going to have to test? Is it linear in the fact that it just goes like that, or is it exponential and it goes like that? I came to the non-conclusive answer that it was somewhere in between, but I thought it was closer to linear than it was the exponential, in which case, if you have an automated regression test pack, then you can actually do releases more frequently because you've automated it. do you have? And it seems to make sense. And then you bring the business in for that little 20% or for the little 2% that you're actually going to change. So where you have a business change or a process change or a workflow change or a patch, if you do the automation across the 80% of the business that it's not going to touch as a regression test, and then bring the business in to do that little risk-based test of the 2%, you're saving an awful lot of testing cycles. So you are, ideally what I'd love to see is whenever a developer releases a transport, it's automatically imported into QAS. That night, there is a unit or an integration test cycle that's automated, and when the developer comes in the morning, he or she gets an email and says, your object passed, well done. Now it moves on to user acceptance testing, which is a manual process.
Right.
That would be beautiful, and that's what they do. That's what they do in all these companies we talked about before, in Facebook, in Google, all these types of stuff. It's late in the process that these guys get involved in testing and in a manual way.
Gotcha. So, in the wonky analyst world that I circulate in, we're seeing the impact of cloud and large enterprise, especially in certain areas like HCM or CRM or procurement and supply networking. Are you seeing that with your customers, and if so, does that throw down a serious challenge to reckon with that from a sysadmin perspective? Do you have the tools you need to manage those environments?
I don't know. And that's the really interesting question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm working on a local authority bid at the moment on my day job, and we're putting in Ariba. Well, they're already an existing Ariba customer, and they want to put in success factors for their HCM stuff. And the fascinating thing about it is, I know how to integrate them with PI at a theoretical level. How I actually monitor the performance, I do not know.
Right.
I really don't. I know that I can go to the web world and my friends in the web world and say, guys, how do you actually performance monitor a SaaS application? Is it a case of you don't, you just monitor the latency? Or is it a case of there's an API that you can pull information from? I don't know. What it is, again, it's one of those things I'm just sitting looking at it going, I'm going to learn something new today.
Yeah, you are. I mean, I know we're talking with SAP recently about the need for these landscape management tools that allow, the management of these cloud environments, because for a lot of these companies, it isn't going to be a pure cloud landscape, right? So they are going to have a team internally that's going to be thinking about the exact same questions you are, which is, how do I integrate data, and how do I account for performance issues, and how do I account for upgrades that might impact things on the back end?
How do I deploy code? How do I manage change from what we've already said is a mature change management point of view, if not particularly well implemented in some customers, but how do I manage code changes? What level of interaction do I have to do? It's the difference between what's development, what's configuration, and what's customization, and what levels of each do I have within each of these applications, and how do I manage that change through not just my own SAP landscape, but through the SaaS landscape.
I keep trying to scare the crap out of you, man. I just keep failing. You're all excited to learn these new skills, and I'm saying to you, like, you don't feel at all exposed that you have a whole different kind of environment on your hands, and you're not sure how to deal with it.
Yeah, there always will be a case of, there are days you wake up and you think, oh, geez, I have to learn something new today, or I've got somebody knocking down my door. Yes, in this situation with this local authority, this is an RFP and things like that. I think I would be a lot more stressed about it if I was at the implementation stage and didn't know anything about it, and sitting thinking, Christ, I have to work out how to do this, otherwise we're in breach of contract. Of course there are days when you wake up and you go, yeah, everything's going to change. But I've just had the last 9 months of thinking everything's going to change. I'm
Right.
kind of used to it by now.
Yeah, it's becoming a way of life, I guess.
Yeah. But no,
So,
I look around at people that I know in the ecosystem and some of the skill sets that are there. There are people who have some really difficult choices to make. Whether they decide to move higher into the application or whether they decide to go niche and go, a high what is it, boutique consultancy and do stuff. But there are hard choices. But the bottom line is, we live in technology, we work in technology. The concept that life is going to remain static is wrong and will never be the case. You if you don't adapt, you die, and that's the bottom line. And so you do this job, you live its life, you live by its rules, and that is learning on a constant basis. Either.
no pun intended.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this earlier today about how uh, SAP and other large BI vendors have faced serious challenges from upstart players that have targeted line of business with much more rapid implementations. And I was thinking about how this seems to be impacting system administration as well, because
Hmm.
it seems like so often we're hearing about these sort of large, unwieldy tool sets. But then on the side, I'm hearing about really interesting stuff that can be done with open source tools and uh, lightweight testing solutions. And are you sensing change in there, and are you a part of that change, or are you resisting that change?
Okay, so I think there's three questions in that. So, am I seeing a lot more open source tools entering the enterprise market? I am. Part of that is to do with the fact that we're all getting a little bit closer together and we're all cross fertilizing each other. So, um, yeah, we do see more of these tools. Um, I think SAP needs to get out a little bit more in terms of. At the top forum, I'll give you an example. They showed us a network tool that SAP developed that will push a configuration onto a firewall or a network device. And I looked at it and I actually said to the guy, I said, there is no way on God's earth a network administrator or a security administrator is going to let me use that tool on their infrastructure. And similarly, there's no way they're going to use it because they have their own tools. So why can't I use their tool? Why do they have to use my tool? It gets down to conversations like that. Whose tool do you use? Whose is more in use than others? And this is one of the reasons why SAP and enterprise software as a general rule needs to get closer to IT in general, because I'll give you an example. There's a product called Logstash, which is, I think it's written by Jordan Sissel. Lovely, really, really nice tool, but it takes about 300 different feeds of information in various formats, it takes a ridiculous number, and it puts it all in a coherent log. So the potential of that, as I understand it, because I haven't used it yet, it's on the list. Um, I could take my SAM, my operating system, my virtualization platform, my SAP platform, and all the rest of it. And let's say I suffered a SAM failure or a network failure at 9:05 on a Monday morning. I could go to Logstash and basically say, show me all the logs from 9 to 9:10, and I would be able to look and see the cascade failure throughout my entire infrastructure and what the consequences of that are as each of the log files come in and register that there's something that's happened on the network. Okay, and it would enable me to then to track back and see what the source of that failure actually was, and that's massively powerful
Mm.
because it means that I'm not sitting to the general IT guys going, well, SAP's down. Okay, I can actually go to them, or we can go together and say, let's query all the log files and find out where the problem actually is, rather than spending the first 10 minutes going, it's you.
Mm.
And those types of tools are really, really powerful. So, um, I am involved with a group of people on the SAP admin front and the DevOps front to actually to educate and bring these tools to the fore. And sometimes it's literally as easy as a tweet to say, looking at Logstash, and then all of a sudden I get about 10 people coming back to me saying, that was a really cool tool, really quite interested by that. And it's all done sort of by word of mouth at the moment. It's kind of quite grassroots.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you thought that customers are aware of these kinds of tools and approaches. I talk to an awful lot of customers that say, "Oh, I'm using," and they'll rattle off some pretty standard names of old school testing environments, and they don't
Yeah.
seem particularly thrilled with some of these tools and environments, but they're kind of locked into doing it a certain way. And do you think there's a lack of awareness? There needs to be some education around what can be done.
It comes back to the very first question you asked me, and that was, what are the challenges? And time is one of them. Time is very, very definitely a challenge for a lot of people. And if we get into tool sets, if time is already a limiting factor within people's professional life and their day job, then that all important time to value ratio becomes even more important. So it is, if people aren't necessarily aware of tools, then yes, that's a challenge to the company who makes the tool to spread awareness, but also it can come down to the fact that there just isn't time for people to sit and play with stuff. Although having said that, we are, with virtualization and cloud and infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, I don't think we've ever been as technologically rich. We just happen, and in terms of documentation rich and community rich, we just are time poor.
Yeah. I've talked with a lot of SAP and Oracle customers about upgrades, and unfortunately, upgrades are a fact of life in on-premise environments, and I think both companies are trying to address that in certain ways, but one of the things you run into is that even if you might have gotten to the latest releases, maybe you acquired another company, or a very common scenario is instance consolidation. Companies realize, why the heck do I have 37 CRM systems and 25 ERP systems, and that's not adding any value. Why did this happen? And so you're trying to fix all that. And what I'm struck by and what really concerns me is that the amount of effort that goes into these patches and upgrades versus the amount of time IT folks have for mission critical business projects that actually support the business and actually help their own resumes, if you will, that we accomplish these things for the business, that it's these IT folks are having such trouble in large enterprises knocking the business projects off the wish list. And it strikes me that they should be concerned about that right now. I don't know if you agree, but it's something I've seen again and again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why we love DevOps. The purpose of DevOps is to automate the hell out of as much as possible, which then frees us up to do the interesting things, to automate and standardize as much of your bread and butter stuff. Like the server. Don't have people doing daily checks on systems. Have exception-based reporting, automated exception-based alerting and reporting, which then means the person who used to be doing the checks can now be freed up to do a business project that is going to be a lot more interesting than his or her checks. And yeah, we have seen a massive shift in how SAP does upgrades and patches and things like that. It started off with the support pack stacks, which then meant, I've done, in the last 6 weeks, I think I've done 8 different rounds of patching for internal systems, and I can quite safely say, and don't anybody jump up and down and do what I do, I read the release note for the stack, that was it. Before, I would have had to have read every SAP note for every component, for every patch level. But now, I download the stack, I read the stack release note. If there's nothing in there that jumps out at me, I just apply the stack and away it goes. And I'm a happy person. And more than that, I have now tools that the software update manager from within SAP that is just phenomenal and does a really good job. So from that point of view, the patching process has become easier. The administration becomes easier because you're using tools and automation. Testing can become easier because, again, you want to automate it as much as possible. And all the time, you're trying to free people up to do interesting stuff, to do more interesting things that the business want us to do. Let's face it. I think you made the point before. The business want to do interesting stuff, move themselves forward. What they don't want to hear is, actually, we have to do an upgrade to the SAP system or to the the Oracle system because this functionality doesn't exist.
Yeah,
project until then.
Yeah, I was saying before we started taping, I was telling you that it gets awkward when the business wants to activate a new warehouse management system, and you have to say to them, well, actually, we're not on release 7.3.4.6 yet, so we can't implement that. We got to do a whole series of patches and upgrades.
Yeah.
And I don't think any IT person relishes being in that position right now. And unfortunately, keeping things safe and secure and the engine running is somewhat of a thankless aspect, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's expected. Now it's about how are we using IT to compete, right? Because otherwise, why do we have an IT department at all? I mean, that's sort of the question I think that's coming.
It's an interesting one. Is IT a cost center or is it a profit center? I actually think it's neither. It should be seen as a value center. How does it actually drive business value? Because at the end of the day, if it's a cost center, then it just sucks money from people. If it's a profit center, then it's selling itself to the business and probably just about doing what the business wants and no more. If it's a value center, then it actually has to strategically align with the business and do the stuff that in parallel with the business. So I think that may be a better way of looking at it.
Well, as you said, we're mature when it comes to change, so we don't have to solve this in today's discussion.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. We may have to resolve it in Vegas.
We may have to address this by the fall conference season, right?
I think so. It's a tough job, John, but somebody has to do it.
By the way, can you believe we made it through an entire 30-minute discussion of these issues that touched a lot on SAP, where we didn't mention HANA once? I mean, that's...
I'll not apologize for that. No, actually, I will. Sorry.
Is that a weakness or a strength of our current discussion? It's hard to say. Probably a bit of both.
I think it is a bit of both. From within my day job at CAP, we have HANA customers. We have a lot of, we're seeing a lot of ramp up in terms of HANA. I think in terms of the administration and things like that as well. Obviously there's the technical HANA certification at associate level and things like that. It's not something that I'm using in anger on a daily basis, so it doesn't necessarily form part of my critical thinking right now, but certainly it's something that I know that in the next sort of, probably after I come back from paternity leave, we'll probably have to start to actually design I'm not going to say best practices, but certainly good practices in system administration for HANA systems. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is being able to expose everything as OData and having it accessible on mobile devices and things like that there in terms of administration. But yeah, look, it's not something I'm playing with on a daily basis, not like John Appleby, who's absolutely HANA crazy. Unfortunately, my focus right now and passion is around operations, and I see lower hanging fruit right now around setting better groundwork for HANA when it comes into most customers to take advantage of.
Well, there you have it, folks. System admin is nothing when it comes to fatherhood. Adapt or die. Change is exciting. Don't feel threatened by it. DevOps rules. I think that's pretty much the summary, right?
I think so. I think so, John. Yeah.
Thanks, man. That was a pleasure.
No worries, mate. Well, thank you very much indeed. It was good to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll catch up again.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Cheers.
That was cool.